the enormous investment in the campaign by the industry to convince the world that nuclear is really the way to go.
Grazie, io vorrei commentare una piccola cosa. Intanto vorrei dire che in Italia stiamo già pagando da anni i costi del decommissioning e anche degli incentivi alle rinnovabili nella bolletta elettrica, basta negli allegati, ci sono vari allegati che corrispondono a queste cifre. E poi un'altra cosa che vorrei dire è che comunque la scelta italiana è quella del nucleare. Noi sono 20 anni, cioè da quando io lavoro per Ambiente Italia, scusate l'autoreferenzialità, ci sono tentativi sempre abortiti di trovare un sito nazionale per le scorie, perché come noi sappiamo una parte delle nostre scorie trattate sono in pensione, per così dire, a Le Hague e a Sellafield dopo essere state riprocessate, però tra un po' devono tornare in Italia. Io vorrei fare una domanda che riguarda il cibo, cioè diciamo un altro gruppo di domande. Ecco, la prima è questa. Allora, la Cina acquista terreni in Africa per la sua produzione agricola. Quali sviluppi ci sono in merito a questo e quali scenari futuri? Cioè che cosa significa? È una forma di colonialismo alimentare, come diceva prima il professor Mondini rispetto all'energia? E poi c'è una forte lobby degli OGM che sostiene che sono la soluzione per risolvere i problemi della fame nel mondo, e appunto su questo lo spettatore, scusate, io uso spettatore, scusa, chiede un commento di Lester Brown. E poi infine l'agricoltura di piccola scala, che importanza può avere in questo momento di transizione? E in questa domanda che è posta da Andrea, che è uno studente, si parla anche d'altro, non solo di cibo per alimentarci, ma anche di cibo per la mente, e in particolare del ruolo, che cosa vuol dire per la comunità scientifica la diffusione del sapere attraverso free source, cioè attraverso, come si dice? Non riesco insomma, come? Sì, le risorse libere a disposizione della comunità scientifica. E forse può bastare.
You mentioned the issue of nuclear waste in Italy and not having a permanent place to dispose of it. This is exactly the situation in the United States. Just to again underline the economics, the solution that evolved in the United States was to put the nuclear waste under a mountain in the state of Nevada, a deep excavation. And the name of the mountain was Yucca Mountain, Y-U-C-C-A. This project, a year or so ago when I saw the last budget for it, was budgeted at $90 billion. Now we have in the United States 104 nuclear power plants. So if you have 104 nuclear power plants and $90 billion for this waste disposal site, that's almost $1 billion per nuclear power plant. And that's not even the full cost of disposing of the waste. So again, the economics are just not there. And that's the problem that nuclear is going to be running into on every front. The question of food colonialization in Africa by China, but not only China, what has happened in the last few years when grain prices tripled in 2007 to early 2008. A lot of importing countries panicked because even with a tripling of grain prices, they didn't know if they could get the imports that they needed for their country. And so the more affluent grain importers, the more affluent food importers, began looking for land in other countries that they could buy or lease on which to produce food for themselves. The leaders in this group were Saudi Arabia, China, and South Korea. The three of them have tried to buy land in a number of countries. There are another probably dozen countries in the group that are trying to acquire land abroad. Whatever we call it, I think it is politically very risky. This is an effort not only to acquire land, but also to acquire water, because land without water is not of much value for producing food. And it represents a new chapter in the evolving history of world food security, where the acquisition of land, where the competition for land and water is now crossing national boundaries. And one of the weaknesses in this system, there are a number of weaknesses, but one of the dangers is that when grain prices go up again, as they will, perhaps even more dramatically than the last time, what happens when the countries that have invested in Ethiopia, the Sudan, countries in West Africa, what happens when the countries that have bought the land try to take food out of the country when people are getting hungrier all the time? I think it creates new political flashpoints and new reasons for insurgencies in these countries, because if you're an aspiring young political leader, the thing to do is to organize and try to keep this food in the country. So you're setting up a potential conflict. So this acquisition of land abroad troubles me. The World Bank was planning to release a study, 6 months ago on this, and they had picked 30 countries around the world where land was being acquired. And they proceeded with the study, but eventually had to abandon the outline for that study, because in many countries they could not get information. The governments would not give information on how much land they had sold, how much they had leased, which leads one to think there was probably a lot of money going under the table as well as over the table. And if the World Bank cannot get data on these sorts of things, who can? And so it raises a lot of questions. And so now the bank has shifted its focus and is going to turn to NGOs who have been compiling data on this from news reports and use that database to do their study. I mean, it's an amazing thing. They were supposed to release this study about 2 weeks ago, but they couldn't release it because they weren't ready yet. And they're under a lot of pressure, I think. So I'm very much concerned about this acquisition of land abroad. The latest tabulation I have seen was actually done by the Observer, which also had to, the Observer in London, which also had to rely on news reports, and we know they're not complete. But they pointed out that the agreements that have been signed and the agreements that are in serious negotiation involve about 50 million hectares of land. I mean, some of these chunks of land being acquired by China in Africa are the size of Belgium. They're huge. But just to put the 50 million hectare total in perspective, that is equal to all the land planted to wheat and corn in the United States. So it's not trivial, it is huge. But we have no idea how this is going to work out.